What was hard to get over was being blamed for something that not only I didn't do, but that happened to me.
The royal family is known for its elegance, power, and carefully crafted image. But beyond the public smiles and grand traditions, there are stories that have been buried, rewritten, or simply erased. Stories of lost heirs, hidden conflicts, and decisions made in secret. Not everything in their world is meant to be seen, and not every truth is meant to be told. Yet, some secrets have a way of slipping through the cracks. These are 11 things the royal family never wanted the world to find out. 1. Prince Andrew and the Epstein scandal. Prince Andrew's downfall is one of the biggest royal scandals in recent years. But why? What exactly did he do that made the royal family push him away? It all started with his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire who was later exposed as a sex offender. Epstein was known for hosting powerful people, politicians, business tycoons, and even royalty. But what raised eyebrows was the fact that even after Epstein was convicted in 2008 for sex crimes, Prince Andrew still stayed in touch with him. There's even a photo of Prince Andrew at Epstein's house in New York in 2010, 2 years after Epstein was already labeled as a sex offender. Why would a prince still be hanging out with a criminal? That's the question everyone started asking. But things got worse. A woman named Virginia Giuffre came forward and accused Prince Andrew of sexually assaulting her when she was 17. She said Epstein and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, forced her to have encounters with powerful men, including Andrew. There's even a photo of Andrew with his arm around her waist. He denied everything. He said he had never met her, despite the picture. To make things even weirder, Andrew gave an interview to BBC in 2019, trying to explain himself. Instead of clearing his name, the interview became a disaster. He claimed he couldn't have been with Virginia on the day she said because he was at a Pizza Express with his daughter. He also said he couldn't sweat, which was his way of denying her claims that he was sweating all over her during their alleged encounter. People found his excuses bizarre and unconvincing. The backlash was immediate. The royal family quickly distanced themselves from him. The Queen stripped him of his royal titles and military honors. He was told to stop using the title His Royal Highness. He even had to step back from royal duties completely. In 2022, he settled the lawsuit with Virginia Giuffre out of court. Though he never admitted wrongdoing, the settlement reportedly cost him millions. The royal family has tried to erase him from public life. He is no longer allowed to represent them in any official way. But the damage was done. The world will always remember his connection to Epstein and the scandal that rocked the monarchy. 2. The mysterious death of Princess Diana. Princess Diana was loved by millions. She wasn't just a princess. She was a symbol of kindness and compassion. But in 1997, her life was cut short in a tragic car crash in Paris. Even after all these years, many people still believe that her death wasn't just an accident. On August 31, 1997, Diana and her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, were trying to escape paparazzi in Paris. Their driver, Henri Paul, was speeding through a tunnel when he lost control of the car and crashed. Diana was severely injured and later died at the hospital. Officially, it was ruled an accident, and the driver was found to be intoxicated. But was it really that simple? Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, believed that Diana and Dodi were killed on purpose. He claimed that the royal family didn't want Diana to marry Dodi because he was Muslim. Some believe that MI6, the British Secret Service, was involved. Another strange detail? There were reports that Diana feared for her life before she died. In a letter she allegedly wrote in 1995, she said, "My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure and serious head injury." She was talking about Prince Charles. The biggest question is, why did the royal family act so coldly after her death? When news broke, the Queen stayed silent. She didn't return to London immediately, and there was no public statement. People were furious. They saw Diana as the people's princess, but the royal family didn't seem to care. Eventually, the Queen addressed the nation, and there was a grand funeral. But to this day, Many believe that there was more to Diana's death than what we were told. Was it just a tragic accident? Or was something more sinister at play? 3. King Edward VIII and his Nazi connections. Imagine this. A king who gives up his throne. Not because of politics, not because of scandal, but because he fell in love. Sounds romantic, right? That's what many people think about King Edward VIII. But there's a darker side to his story. Edward was king for less than a year in 1936. He fell in love with an American woman named Wallis Simpson. The problem? She was twice divorced, and the British government didn't approve. Edward had to choose his throne or his love. He chose love and abdicated the throne. His brother King George VI, the father of Queen Elizabeth II, took over. But here's the part. History books don't talk about much. Edward had ties to the Nazis. After giving up the throne, he and Wallis moved to France and later visited Nazi Germany. There's even a photo of him shaking hands with Adolf Hitler in 1937. Many believe that Edward was a Nazi sympathizer. Some historians even claim that Hitler wanted to reinstall Edward as king if Germany won World War II. There were secret government files suggesting that Edward had communicated with the Nazis about a possible peace deal. The British government tried to suppress this information. They sent Edward and Wallis far away, to the Bahamas, where they couldn't cause trouble. To this day, the royal family rarely talks about Edward's Nazi connections. They prefer to focus on the love story, not the controversy. 4. Prince Charles's secret letters and political influence. The royal family is supposed to stay neutral in politics. But what if a future king secretly tried to influence the government? That's exactly what Prince Charles did for years. Between 2004 and 2005, Charles wrote a series of letters to government ministers. These letters, later known as the Black Spider Memos because of his messy handwriting, revealed how he was lobbying politicians on various issues. What was he writing about? Everything from environmental policies to alternative medicine, even military equipment. He wasn't just making polite suggestions, he was trying to push the government in certain directions. For years, these letters were kept secret. The British government refused to release them, arguing that they would damage the idea of a politically neutral monarchy. But in 2015, after a long legal battle, the letters were finally published. Many people were shocked. Should a royal, especially a future king, be involved in politics like this? The monarchy is meant to stay out of government decisions. If Charles was this politically active as a prince, what would he be like as king? After the letters came out, Charles became more careful. He publicly stated that when he becomes king, he will stay neutral. But can someone who spent decades trying to influence politics suddenly stop? That's the big question. 5. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's departure. When Meghan Markle first joined the royal family, people were excited. An American actress becoming a princess, it felt like a fairy tale. But that fairy tale quickly turned into a nightmare. Meghan faced harsh treatment from the British press. Headlines attacked everything she did. If Kate Middleton wore a dress, she was stunning. If Meghan wore the same dress, she was breaking royal protocol. The media criticized her for everything. Her background, her past relationships, even the way she held her baby bump. But the real shock came when Meghan and Harry revealed what happened behind palace doors. In their interview with Oprah, Meghan said she felt alone, trapped, and even suicidal. She asked for help. She was told no. Can you imagine feeling so hopeless and not having anyone to turn to? The most shocking part? Meghan and Harry claimed that a royal family member, someone very close to the throne, asked how dark their son Archie's skin would be. Racism, secrecy, and control. It was too much for them. In 2020, they stepped down from their royal roles and moved to the US. Some people called them traitors. Others believed they were standing up for themselves. And how did the royal family respond? In a short statement, they said they were saddened, but that recollections may vary. In other words, they denied most of what Meghan and Harry had said. No apology, no real discussion, just damage control. What do you think? Were Meghan and Harry right to leave? Or did they turn their backs on the crown? The Queen's hidden wealth and tax avoidance. The royal family is rich. Not just a little rich, crazy rich. Castles, gold, priceless jewels, you name it. But here's the real question. Where does their money come from? And do they pay taxes like the rest of us? For years, people have asked how much the Queen, now King Charles, was really worth. The palace never gives a clear answer. But in 2017, something shocking was revealed. The Paradise Papers. These leaked documents showed that the Queen had secretly invested millions of pounds in offshore tax havens. Now, let's be clear. What she did wasn't illegal. But it raised a big ethical question. Why is the Queen hiding her money in secret accounts, while regular people struggle to pay their taxes? The monarchy also benefits from special tax rules. The royal family gets money from the sovereign grant, which is funded by British taxpayers. But did you know that they don't have to pay inheritance tax like everyone else? Normally, when someone dies, their family has to pay 40% of anything over £325,000. But when Queen Elizabeth passed away, King Charles didn't have to pay a single penny on what he inherited from her. Why? Because of a special rule made just for the monarchy. And if you're thinking, well, at least they released their full financial details, think again. Unlike other public figures, the royal family doesn't have to show where all their money goes. They keep a lot of it hidden. Should they be more transparent? Or is it fair for them to have different rules than the rest of us? The cover-up of Prince Philip's car crash. Imagine this. You're driving down the road, minding your own business, when an elderly man crashes into your car. You're injured. Your child is terrified. Now imagine that the man who hit you is none other than Prince Philip, the husband of the Queen. That's exactly what happened in 2019. Prince Philip, who was 97 years old at the time, was driving near Sandringham Estate when he hit another car. The crash flipped his Land Rover over. The woman in the other car suffered a broken wrist. There was a baby in the back seat. Thankfully, the baby was unharmed. Now, in a normal situation, what would happen? The police would investigate. Charges might be filed. The driver would likely face some consequences. But this wasn't a normal situation. This was royalty. The palace quickly went into damage control. Within 24 hours, Prince Philip was seen driving again, in a brand new Land Rover. No charges were filed. The whole situation was brushed under the rug. After a lot of public backlash, Philip finally wrote an apology letter to the injured woman. But many people felt it was too little, too late. Here's the big question. Should the royal family be treated like regular citizens when they break the law? Or should they always get a free pass? The Forgotten Royal. Have you ever heard of Prince John? Probably not. And there's a reason for that. Prince John was the youngest son of King George V and Queen Mary. He was born in 1905, but unlike his royal brothers and sisters, he was kept hidden from the public. Why? Because he had epilepsy. At that time, disabilities were seen as shameful in the royal family. They didn't want people to know they had a weak member in their bloodline. So, as John's condition worsened, they sent him away to live in a small house away from the main palace. His own parents rarely visited him. He was basically erased from history while he was still alive. Prince John died at just 13 years old after suffering a severe seizure. And do you know how the royal family reacted? His father reportedly showed little emotion and said John's death was a relief. His mother later wrote in her diary that John was better off this way. Can you imagine that? A child suffering from a medical condition, completely hidden away, and then dismissed like he never existed. It's heartbreaking. The scandalous love life of Princess Margaret. Princess Margaret, the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth II, lived a life that felt straight out of a movie. She was beautiful, bold, and rebellious. But unlike in fairy tales, her love life was full of heartbreak, scandals, and royal restrictions. Let's start with the man who became the center of one of the biggest royal love scandals, Peter Townsend. Who was he? He wasn't a prince, not a king, not even a duke. He was a simple, hard-working man who served as an officer in the Royal Air Force. He was also a war hero and, most importantly, a gentleman. Margaret fell deeply in love with him, but there was a problem, a huge one. Peter was divorced. And back then, in the 1950s, the British royal family did not approve of divorces, especially when it came to choosing a life partner. The Church of England, which the Queen was the head of, had strict rules. They believed that once you were married, that was it, forever. No second chances. And Margaret, being the Queen's sister, had to follow those rules. But love doesn't follow rules, does it? Margaret and Peter were deeply in love and wanted to get married. When the public found out, people were divided. Some supported her, believing she should be able to choose her own happiness. Others believed the rules were the rules, and she should obey them. So, what did the royal family do? They sent Peter away. Literally. He was posted to Belgium to separate them. Imagine that. Being forced to say goodbye to the person you love just because others don't approve. But Margaret still didn't give up. When she turned 25, she had the right to choose for herself. If she wanted, she could have married Peter without needing the Queen's permission. But then, something unexpected happened. She gave him up. She released a statement saying she had decided not to marry him, choosing duty over love. Some believe she was pressured into it. Others think she realized life with Peter wouldn't be easy. Whatever the truth, she lost the love of her life. So did Margaret ever find love again? She did. But her next relationships were far from fairy tale romances. She ended up marrying Anthony Armstrong Jones, a photographer. At first, it seemed like a perfect match. But behind closed doors, things were different. Their marriage was full of fights, cheating, and unhappiness. Margaret had affairs, Anthony had affairs, and eventually, they became the first royal couple in 400 years to get divorced. 10. Queen Elizabeth's censorship of royal archives. Now, here's something that not many people know about. The secrets hidden in the royal archives. You see, history is supposed to belong to everyone, right? We should be able to learn from it, study it, and understand what really happened. But when it comes to the British royal family, some things are off limits. The royal archives hold thousands of documents, letters, and files related to the monarchy. Some of these papers are over 100 years old, and yet, they are still locked away. Why? What could be so secret that even historians aren't allowed to see them? One of the biggest areas of secrecy is Britain's colonial history. During the time of the British Empire, many dark things happened: wars, invasions, and even human rights abuses. But instead of being open about it, many documents were destroyed or hidden. There are stories of how, before certain countries gained independence, British officials burned piles of records so no one would ever know the truth. And then there are the royal decisions. There have been times when the royal family influenced politics in ways the public was never supposed to know. The Queen, for example, had secret powers to review and block laws before they were passed. Some of these laws had to do with money, land, and royal privileges. So, why keep all this hidden? The official reason is to protect the dignity of the monarchy. But in reality, it's about controlling the story. If people learned too much about the darker side of royal history, would they still see the monarchy the same way? Many historians have tried to gain access to these files. Some have fought legal battles to open them. But most of the time, the answer is no. The Queen had the power to keep certain documents sealed for up to 100 years, meaning that even today, we might never know the full truth about some of the most important events in royal history. 11. The mystery of the lost royal fortune. Here's a question for you. What happens to all the royal money when a king or queen dies? Does it get split among the family? Does it go to charity? Or does it just disappear? The British royal family is worth billions of dollars, but their wealth is tricky. Some of it comes from the Crown Estate, which is a massive collection of land, buildings, and businesses. This estate makes a lot of money every year, but the royal family doesn't actually own it. It belongs to the state. They just get a portion of the profits. But then there's the private royal wealth. This includes castles, jewelry, art, and secret bank accounts. When a monarch dies, all of this gets passed down in a way that is completely hidden from the public. Unlike normal people, The royal family doesn't have to pay inheritance tax when wealth is transferred from one monarch to the next. This means they can keep millions, maybe even billions, without losing a single penny to taxes. And then there's the offshore accounts. Some leaked documents, like the Paradise Papers, revealed that the Queen had money invested in secret funds outside of the UK. This isn't illegal, but it raises big questions. If the royal family is funded by taxpayers, shouldn't people know where their money is going? The British royal family has done an incredible job of keeping secrets, whether it's love, history, or money. There are things they simply don't want the public to know. But in today's world, where information spreads faster than ever, how much longer can they keep these secrets? What do you think? Should the monarchy be more open? Or do they have the right to privacy? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because the truth deserves to be heard.
Actually, it's interesting. Sounds rather sort of bizarre, but I did go to Diana's coffin the day after I'd written it.
The innocence about her, you just thought, wow, this girl is knockout.
In a moment that has stunned royal watchers worldwide, Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, and beloved brother of the late Princess Diana, has finally addressed the persistent rumors that have circulated for decades about his sister's life and death. At a commemorative event marking what would have been Diana's milestone birthday, the normally composed Earl broke down in tears before making revelations that threatened to reshape our understanding of modern royal history. This extraordinary moment of vulnerability and truth-telling has sent shockwaves through monarchist circles and beyond, reopening wounds many thought had finally begun to heal. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. For nearly 3 decades, Earl Spencer has been the stalwart guardian of his sister's legacy, famously promising at her funeral to ensure that her blood family would guide her sons so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly. His carefully measured public statements about Diana have always balanced familial loyalty with appropriate discretion. Until now, that is. Why now? Why at 60? Those close to the Earl suggest that reaching this milestone birthday, an age Diana herself never reached, prompted a profound reassessment of family obligations and historical truth. Charles has carried these burdens silently for decades, reveals one longtime family associate. There comes a point when the weight of unspoken truths becomes unbearable, particularly as the principals in this story age and the historical record begins to solidify. The revelations center on the final years of Diana's life and the circumstances surrounding her tragic death in Paris. According to Earl Spencer, the level of establishment resistance to Diana's independent path was far greater than the public has ever been told. What my sister faced wasn't simply media harassment or palace disapproval, he reportedly stated through tears. There was a coordinated effort to control her narrative, her movements, and ultimately her legacy that went beyond what anyone has acknowledged publicly. Most explosively, the Earl has apparently confirmed long-whispered rumors about unusual surveillance in the weeks before Diana's fatal accident. While stopping short of endorsing conspiracy theories about deliberate harm, Spencer described a pattern of monitoring and interference that deeply troubled Diana in her final months. She called me from secure lines, changed her plans constantly, and expressed fears that seemed paranoid at the time, he revealed. I regret more than I can express that I didn't take those fears more seriously. This revelation cast new light on Spencer's famous funeral oration, particularly his pointed reference to Diana being hunted. What many interpreted as grief-stricken hyperbole about press intrusion may have had more specific and concerning foundations. Charles has carried the guilt of not acting on Diana's concerns for 27 years, says someone familiar with the family. This disclosure is as much personal unburdening as it is historical clarification. For Princes William and Harry, their uncle's disclosures create complex new emotional territory to navigate. Both princes have spent decades processing their mother's death and constructing their own understanding of her life and legacy. Spencer's revelations potentially disrupt those hard-won narratives with new information about the forces that shaped Diana's final years. Royal sources suggest William was made aware of his uncle's intentions before the public statement, while Harry's prior knowledge remains unclear. The different positions the brothers now occupy, one at the heart of the institution, one removed from it, create inevitably different contexts for absorbing these revelations about their mother and the establishment's treatment of her. The Earl's relationship with his nephews has reportedly fluctuated over the years. Initially cast as a potential guardian figure following Diana's death, Spencer's role became more peripheral as the princes grew into adulthood within the royal framework. Recent years have seen apparent warming, particularly with Harry following his step back from royal duties. These new revelations may further complicate these relationships, particularly with William, whose future role requires careful management of institutional relationships. For King Charles and the palace, this development represents a significant challenge. The monarchy has worked diligently to move beyond the turbulent Diana years, gradually rehabilitating Camilla's public image and establishing a new royal narrative focused on stability and continuity. Spencer's emotional disclosures threaten to reopen questions many in the palace had hoped were settled. The timing is particularly sensitive given recent royal health challenges and the reduced number of working royals. A resurgence of public interest in Diana's treatment potentially undermines confidence in the institution at a vulnerable moment. Palace sources indicate that the response strategy will focus on respectful acknowledgement without engagement with specific claims, emphasizing the significant passage of time since these events. Public reaction has predictably divided along already established lines. For those who have always maintained skepticism about the official narrative of Diana's death, Spencer's revelations feel like vindication after years of being dismissed as conspiracy theorists. For others, his disclosures seem unnecessarily painful, reopening of historical wounds without clear purpose or resolution. Social media has exploded with renewed discussion of Diana's final years, with younger generations discovering or re-examining this history through the lens of Spencer's emotional testimony. The Spencer family's historical standing and Charles's reputation for measured public statements give these revelations a credibility that more sensationalist claims have lacked. What makes the Earl's disclosure particularly powerful is his historical reluctance to speak publicly about these matters. Unlike others in Diana's circle who quickly monetized their connections through books and interviews, Spencer has maintained dignified discretion for decades. This established pattern of restraint means his decision to speak now carries exceptional weight. The specific timing, at age 60, approaching the age when mortality becomes more tangible, suggests a man taking stock of his historical responsibilities. There's a sense that Charles feels this may be his last significant opportunity to influence how his sister's story is understood by future generations, explains one royal historian. As the last living person with intimate knowledge of certain aspects of Diana's experience, he carries a unique burden of witness. For the Spencer family more broadly, this moment represents a reassertion of their historical significance after years of being somewhat overshadowed by Windsor narratives. The Spencers, with their distinguished lineage predating the Windsors' royal status, have maintained a dignified distance from royal dramas, while occasionally reminding the public of their important role in Diana's formation and legacy. Mental health experts note the powerful symbolism of Spencer's emotional display. For a man of his generation and background, public tears represent an extraordinary breach of established codes of aristocratic restraint. This visible emotion communicates something important about the gravity of what's being disclosed, notes one psychologist. It signals authenticity in a way that mere words might not. The legal implications of Spencer's disclosures remain unclear. While he has reportedly been careful to avoid specific accusations of criminality, his statements about surveillance and institutional resistance to Diana's independence potentially raise questions about proportionality and propriety of actions taken by various authorities. Legal experts suggest that the significant passage of time makes any formal investigation highly unlikely. For historians of the monarchy, Spencer's intervention represents a significant new perspective that must be integrated into scholarly understanding of the late 20th century royal narrative. These aren't claims from a peripheral figure or someone with an axe to grind, notes one royal biographer. This is testimony from someone at the absolute center of the Diana story, speaking after decades of careful reflection. As the impact of Spencer's emotional disclosures continues to reverberate, attention inevitably turns to whether this represents his final word, or the beginning of a more comprehensive account. Sources close to the Earl suggest he has maintained extensive diaries throughout his life, materials that would provide unprecedented insight into the private Diana few were privileged to know. What remains most poignant about this moment is Spencer's evident continuing grief for his sister, nearly 3 decades after her passing. The tears that preceded his revelations spoke volumes about the emotional cost of both maintaining silence and finally breaking it. For all the historical and institutional significance of his disclosures, this remains at heart a story about a brother who lost his sister under traumatic circumstances and has spent a lifetime processing that loss. For those who continue to hold Diana's memory sacred, Spencer's testimony offers both validation and fresh pain. The suggestion that her fears in those final months had more foundation than was acknowledged forces a reconsideration of narratives many had reluctantly accepted. It raises uncomfortable questions about whether more could have been done to protect her, had her concerns been taken more seriously. The Spencer family motto, "God defend the right," seems particularly poignant in light of these disclosures. After decades of restraint, Diana's brother appears to have concluded that defending what he sees as right requires speaking uncomfortable truths, regardless of institutional discomfort or potential backlash. It is a position entirely consistent with Diana's own evolution from shy royal bride to outspoken advocate willing to challenge powerful interests. As this extraordinary story continues to unfold, one truth remains self-evident. The legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, continues to exert profound influence on both the monarchy and public consciousness nearly 3 decades after her death. Her brother's emotional testimony ensures that influence will extend to new generations who never experienced the Diana phenomenon firsthand. For Charles Spencer, now standing in his truth at 60, the path forward involves navigating the consequences of breaking his long silence. For the monarchy, it means absorbing yet another chapter in a story they have never fully controlled. And for William and Harry, it means integrating new perspectives into their understanding of the mother whose loss has shaped their lives in countless ways. In royal history, this may well be remembered as the moment when the carefully constructed official narrative about Diana's final years faced its most significant challenge, not from sensationalist outsiders, but from the tearful testimony of the brother who knew her best and loved her most. For an institution that has weathered centuries of crises through strategic adaptation, this moment calls for particular wisdom and restraint. The monarchy's greatest strength has always been its capacity to absorb new realities without fundamentally changing course. That resilience will once again be tested as it navigates the fallout from Spencer's unexpected moment of emotional truth-telling. Whatever comes next, the sight of Diana's brother finally giving voice to long-held concerns after decades of dignified silence has created an indelible new chapter in one of the most compelling and tragic royal stories of modern times. At 60, Charles Spencer has ensured that his sister's truth, as he understands it, will remain part of the historical record, alongside the more sanitized official accounts of a woman whose life and death continue to fascinate and move us nearly 3 decades after her passing.